This is a Fox News alert. I'm Dana Perino, and this is The Five. A stunning announcement from the White House today. President Trump fires FBI Director James Comey. It's only the second time in history that a president has fired the head of the Bureau. Comey was in Los Angeles at the time. He was supposed to attend an event tonight, but boarded a flight moments ago. The White House says that Comey was dismissed over these comments he made last year about the Hillary Clinton email investigation.
I have not coordinated this statement or reviewed it in any way with the Department of Justice or any other part of the government. They do not know what I'm about to say. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
All right, Kimberly, this was big breaking news today. A lot of people, absolutely unexpected. And really unexpected for James Comey, who apparently was giving us, doing an FBI recruitment event and didn't know about it until he saw on the screens in the back of the room that he'd been fired.
Can you imagine? And of course, this happens in Los Angeles. And we saw a local Fox affiliate who was apparently following the motorcade that they believed to be former director of the FBI, Comey, and now we're looking at a plane apparently coming back to Washington.
And that is a picture of the plane taking off, Kimberly, a live look at that.
It's a live action shot of a plane, America.
Yes.
Take a look at that.
Very important. You'll only get that here.
That is not stock photography. Real plane.
Kimberly, we'll let you finish.
Doesn't appear to be going too quickly. Yeah, so obviously he didn't make his speech, but it's interesting, the clip that you just played, Dana, that really is the crux of this, where things went terribly wrong as a former career prosecutor. You do not make the judgment if you're the investigator and tell the prosecutor what to do in terms of a decision to prosecute. He should have allowed that to go straight to Loretta Lynch without the interference of his personal opinion. It was overstepping his bounds. It was improper for the head of the FBI to do that, and that's where this started to really unravel for him. All right, well, joining us now is Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts. John, could you catch us up on the day? I mean, you were at the White House. Where were you when you heard the news?
You know, Dana, and you know this all too well, that when there's nothing on the schedule, that's when you got to be prepared for something big to happen. I had actually gone to the White House staff earlier today and said, you're not planning a press conference, are you? Because anytime there's nothing on the schedule, that's the time when you really got to get your antenna up. And then at about, I guess it was 5:40 in the afternoon, we got word that Comey was being fired, as you see in there aboard the Air Force, I think that's a G3. For the very last time as he's heading back to Washington from Los Angeles. We are told by White House officials that this really was the work of Rod Rosenstein, who was the Deputy Attorney General, that he came into the job after being confirmed by a vote of 94-6, not quite unanimous, but obviously a lot of Democratic support, and started reviewing this case, started assessing the situation. Clearly, he had had some concerns about all of this prior to taking over as the Deputy Attorney General, and made the determination that Comey had acted absolutely improperly with what he said about Hillary Clinton in that hour-plus long press conference back in July of last year, when he said that she had mishandled emails, that she had stored classified emails on her server, that she shouldn't have done it, but then at the same time, he didn't think that it warranted pressing charges. And he just said that Rosenstein said that at that point, Comey had really usurped the authority of then Attorney General Loretta Lynch. But I think what really buried Comey was what he said last week in testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he alluded to the fact that when he heard that Bill Clinton had that tarmac interlude with the Attorney General, that he needed to act because he thought that he would be accused of covering something up had he not come forward. But what Rosenstein found was that he overstepped all bounds, that the director of the FBI could only do something like that when they've got special permission to do it. And it was at that point that Rosenstein determined that he had lost confidence in Comey's ability to run the FBI. Now, you could make a case that President Trump has not been happy with Comey, going all the way back to the 5th of July, when he railed against his decision not to press charges against Hillary Clinton. Comey did seem to redeem himself in the president's eyes while he was still a candidate back at the end of October, when he decided that he was going to reopen the investigation. You saw the warm handshake, the pat on the shoulder, and the whisper in the ear on the 22nd of January when the president finally met Comey face to face. And at that point, the two of them seemed to be getting along. But I think it's pretty safe to say all along this president has been awfully skeptical of the FBI director and his ability to lead the FBI, certainly at least in the eyes of the president. But the White House pointing simply to the Deputy Attorney General, who was the director of the FBI's immediate superior, to say that it was Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein that lost confidence in Comey and decided that it was best that he be replaced at the FBI. The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, concurred. The president accepted the recommendation of both of his officials and fired him on the spot late this afternoon.
All right, we're going to take it around the table here while we have you. Jesse Waters, you want to go next?
So, John, the axe fell pretty swiftly on Comey, and everybody was looking around like, what just happened? Is this Trump, the businessman, you're fired, apprentice style, get a new guy in there as fast as possible and forget about the consequences, versus, you know, how this would usually roll out in a situation where they do this smoothly over the course of a week or two with leaks and then plan it out and have it be more executed? Do you see any positives or any negatives with the kind of swift, decisive personnel action that the president took here?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm a fan of that series Spartacus on Netflix, and a lot of heads get chopped off in that show, and that's exactly what happened today to the FBI director.
Yeah.
I mean, this came as a shock to literally everyone, including the FBI director. I know that the president made a couple of courtesy calls, one to Senator Schumer, another one to Senator Graham, about 10 minutes before the axe fell on the FBI director. But I think, Jesse, that the president handled this in much the same way that he handles a lot of his business dealings,
right.
That when you've got somebody who you don't have confidence in, they've got to go. I don't necessarily know that the FBI director is going to be replaced swiftly. I'm sure that he's got some people in mind. Andrew McCabe will be the acting director, at least for the time being, but I don't think McCabe is going to be the guy, because there's still a sense here at the White House that McCabe may have sandbagged the White House chief of staff in the early days of this administration, when he told him in an aside, hey, by the way, that story about Russia connections with some people from your campaign in the New York Times, we're telling you that that didn't happen. And then that suddenly became public, leaving Reince Priebus to look pretty bad in public. So I think the president's going to take some time, find the right person for this job.
All right, Juan Williams?
So, John, I am curious about the reaction coming from Capitol Hill to the White House. You mentioned the conversation that Schumer had with President Trump. Schumer said that he told President Trump this is a mistake. And then subsequent to that, we've heard from Bob Casey of Pennsylvania. This is Nixonian. He says it's analogous to the Saturday Night Massacre. We've heard from Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, who says the legal system is being threatened. And even Republicans, John McCain of Arizona, saying he regrets this. And we see from Richard Burr, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, who said he's troubled by this. So the question is it likely now that to insulate the White House, President Trump will support an independent inquiry into the Russia probe?
You know, I think that the president is very comfortable with where that investigation lies, and it lies now in the hands of the Deputy Attorney General after Jeff Sessions recused himself. I don't think that there will be any great call here at the White House to have a special prosecutor look into that. But let's also look at some of the statements that are coming from Democrats on Capitol Hill, Juan. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was 14 days ago, Senator Schumer said that Rod Rosenstein was a guy who has proved himself to be a man of integrity. 6 months ago, Senator Schumer said that he had lost confidence in James Comey. So it's difficult to suddenly turn around and say, this is all Nixonian, this shouldn't have happened, when you've come out and you've praised the guy that made the recommendation and you've denigrated the guy who fell to the axe. So I think that some Democrats are on a little bit shaky ground when they criticize the president for taking this action. Certainly, you wouldn't have found many Democrats on October the 28th who were calling for James Comey's tenure at the FBI to be extended to its full term.
I would agree with you, John. The question is, did the president then use what happened last week, I guess, when Comey misstated or outright deceived the Congress about the investigation and into the emails, especially with regard to emails that Huma Abedin had been forwarding or had been somehow transferred to her husband's computer? Did the president use that then as a convenient excuse? Because the president has been highly critical. Trump tweeted just a week ago, Comey gave a free pass. It was a bad deal, and said that the Russia-Trump collusion, total hoax. So, I mean, even to Fox, here at Fox, he said to Maria Bartiromo that Hillary Clinton was guilty on every charge and that Comey let her go free. So is it the case, do you think, that possibly Trump just used what happened last week as an excuse to dump a guy he wanted out?
You know, I talked about this a couple of hours ago, Juan, that you could probably make a pretty solid case to say that President Trump may have been gunning for Jim Comey since July 5th of last year, but that he was told by his aides that he couldn't do it and make it look right until he had Comey's boss in place and got the right boss in there to fire Comey. I'm being told that that's not the case, that this was Rosenstein. But I think that some people who want to believe a little more in the conspiracy theory end of things, or maybe are just being pragmatic about the whole thing, could say that President Trump has had it in for Comey for a long time, and this was the opportunity to do it, and to do it right with a lot of political cover.
I'm going to let Greg Gutfeld ask a question or a comment.
I have a couple of comments. I think if he writes a book, it should be called You Don't Know Me by James Comey. You Don't Know Me by James Comey.
I'd buy it.
That's very true.
Yeah. My theory on this is that he's like a nuisance needle. He injected himself into everything, and he made it worse. He treated his job as though he were on a TV series. So everything that he did was a series of dramatic moments and pronouncements, when in fact his job should have been less interesting. Like he's running a business. He treated like he was on Scandal or House of Cards. So whenever something would happen, he would come up there and have to make a pronouncement and feel the light of the spotlight on him. And I think because of that, he was like a drunk and a cow pastor. He just kept stepping into it and dragging it everywhere. And I think he was the least surprised, and maybe that's my question is, wasn't he pretty much just expecting this to happen and that tomorrow he gets to wake up and watch The View?
Well, maybe he might be looking forward to that finally, and perhaps finally getting out. I'll tell you, Greg, nobody can spin a tale like you can. But if you go back to what the FBI director said at Boston College a couple of months ago, he looked like he was, you know, probably going to take this all the way through until the end of his tenure, which was 6.5 years from now. Mm-hmm. But the president made it clear to Comey in the letter of termination that he wrote him. He said, quote, "While I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I'm not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau." Basically, what the president was saying was, I appreciate the fact that you've said favorable things about me and things that would lead people to believe that there was no collusion by the Trump campaign with Russia in terms of trying to influence the election. But I'm not going to allow you to skate when I have several people who I deeply trust telling me that you're not the person for this job.
You know, that's a good point. You know, when he said that in the letter, when he said, I appreciate you not saying that I broke, that's like what you say before you dump somebody. It's like, you know what, we had some great times. I'm not such a bad guy.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. Yeah.
He said that at the end.
Yes.
Good luck in your future endeavors.
Do you remember when we took that long trip together up that winding mountain road in the convertible and love was in the air? Well, that doesn't exist anymore, and I'll see you later.
And now we're in the cow pasture, apparently.
Exactly.
Kimberly Guilfoyle has a question for you.
Yes, hopefully a sensible one.
Hey, is that a jab at me?
No, I like your story.
Just don't ask me about a tax holiday, please.
No, absolutely not.
He still remembers
That's the later
that.
half of the show. It seems to me, though, that this really was a long time coming. And you talk about July 5th and going back to the election. I mean, there was grounds and reason for President Obama to remove him really from his position as well. And in terms of the recent developments with respect to his testimony, I think there was ample evidence there as well that he had mishandled his position and the authority that he was given as director of the FBI. This, to me, does not come as a surprise that it happened. Quite honestly, as a former prosecutor, I was expecting it to even happen sooner in terms of it being a problem with the public trust and someone that really overstepped his bounds and assuming the role essentially of Loretta Lynch, and as if he was the AG as well.
Well, here's one of the questions I have, Kimberly. It's not that Comey is gone, because you could make a case that he should have been fired a long time ago. Yeah. Maybe immediately after what he did back in July. It's why now? And what did Rod Rosenstein see that Sally Yates didn't see when she was the Deputy Attorney General? You know, if he was going to be fired for what he did, if what he did was such an egregious violation of his position there as director of the FBI, why didn't Sally Yates make the recommendation to Loretta Lynch, who would then make the recommendation to President Obama to fire him? So I'm still puzzled as to why this happened today.
Well, maybe we'll find out a little bit more about that. And John, I wonder if you could just explain a little bit to people that they might not realize that the FBI director is a political appointee.
He is.
He or she serves at the pleasure of the president, though it is for a 10-year term, and that's very unique in Washington, and that's why you've seen him over the course of 3 administrations and wanting to finish out the end of this term, but of course that didn't come to pass.
And as you know, there are a number of those appointments in the federal government. I believe the Fed chairman is one of those as well, that are appointed for longer terms than normal for a political appointee. He really wanted to finish out that term, as far as we could tell. He expected that he was going to. I know that the letter of termination was delivered in 2 ways. It was delivered electronically, and I think that Comey probably got a copy of the electronic letter because he was in Los Angeles at the time. And the president's former chief of security, now the director of Oval Office operations, Keith Schiller, took a hard copy over to the FBI earlier today. The president wanted to make sure that there was a formal delivery as well as the electronic delivery. It may not have come as a surprise to Comey. He may have known that his head was on the chopping block, but from everything that we can glean since this has happened, this came as a surprise to just about everybody involved.
And it might not have satisfied many in the media, and it might have been impossible to stop leaks from it getting out, but the White House could actually have just said, the FBI director serves at the pleasure of the president. The president is no longer pleased, or just to say we thank him for his service. We appreciate what he's done for the country. And we are now nominating a new FBI director. In the meantime, Andrew McCabe will be the deputy. And until we have a chance to vet, nominate, and confirm a new FBI director. I just think that saying that what it was, like giving an explanation and using July 5th and the Hillary Clinton piece actually leads to more questions and speculation rather than just saying, we have nothing more to say here. He serves at the pleasure of the president and he no longer serves.
It does. And something else that I found very curious about this was they didn't just fire James Comey. They buried him.
Right.
And that lengthy letter to the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, from the Deputy Attorney General, outlining a long litany of horribles that James Comey committed, and the fact that it happened in the Obama administration and revolved around Hillary Clinton, I mean, just the irony could not be deeper than that. But they took pains here to make sure that they had dotted every I and crossed every T in terms of ethics, morality, and conduct, to say this is why this guy has to go. They really, really built a case against this guy, which is why I said to Jesse earlier, they cut his head off. They didn't just fire him.
But they didn't just fire him. They fired him while he was on the road, which is the worst thing ever, because if you're like me, you have all sorts of sensitive stuff on your desk. Like credit card statements and prescriptions and stray phone numbers. You don't even have a chance to get back to your office to get the stuff off your desk or even steal the company toilet paper. Why do you think they didn't wait? Why did they do it while he was away? Is that kind of tacky?
Not only that, but he's in Los Angeles, and he's got to be thinking to himself, wow, do I get a ride home or am I going to have to hitchhike?
Exactly.
But they let him have the FBI jet to come back home. But yeah, when you're on anybody who's ever been fired or lost a job while they're on the road,
3 times,
you can count me in that one too. It's particularly painful because you're wondering what happened, what could I have done differently, and can I get back in and get my orchid off the desk, or somebody going to let it die?
Orchid, that's what you call it.
As we build the profile to understanding John Roberts, the orchid on the desk will play a prominent role. Jesse had another question for you.
I have nothing like that on either, not like that on his desk, or no orchids either. I want to make that very clear. I think they could have built a bigger case against Comey. I mean, it's not just botching the Hillary Clinton investigation. They didn't pursue the Clinton Foundation scandals. They gave everybody immunity in the Hillary Clinton email thing. Besides the UMA stuff, the FBI is also tied into that hoax Russian dossier, too. And then even looking farther back, they let these Russian, Boston Marathon bombers slip through the cracks. They let the nightclub bomber in Orlando slipped through the cracks. Remember, they interviewed him, and then they totally embarrassed themselves after the San Bernardino shooting when they couldn't crack into the iPhone and had Apple basically pancake them in front of the entire world. So, I mean, this guy's track record under the FBI, and they have great people at the FBI, hasn't been that stellar.
But again, Jesse, when you look at that long letter from Rosenstein, it had nothing to do with any of that. It was purely
Well, they could have made that case, and it would have bolstered their case much bigger.
They could have made that case, but it was tangential to the matter at hand, and I think that they thought that they were probably on firmer ground, particularly with this being about Hillary Clinton. I mean, for the Trump administration to fire the FBI director for his handling of the Hillary Clinton issue, I mean, that does, regardless of what Democrats on Capitol Hill are saying, that puts you on pretty solid ground legally and morally as well when you're going to take somebody out. You know, if it had been, well, we didn't like the way he handled the Trump investigation, we're going to fire him.
Right.
Well, that wouldn't have looked very good. But if you're saying we didn't like the way that he handled the investigation into our opponent, that makes you look pretty good, despite the fact that Democrats are trying to say this looks pretty bad.
All right, John Roberts, thank you so much. We'll be checking back with you perhaps
Thanks,
a little
John.
bit later.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks.